The helicopter's blades cut through the morning air. As Dr. Rebecca Hayes pressed her face against the small window below her, endless green forest stretched in every direction. She had been flying for 2 hours now, leaving civilization far behind. The research station was supposed to be somewhere in this wilderness. Hidden away from the world, Rebecca clutched her research bag tighter. This was her first solo assignment, and she wanted everything to be perfect. She had studied animal behavior for years, but this job was different. The email had been brief: 3 weeks studying a special wolf at a remote facility. The pay was excellent, and the experience would look amazing on her resume. The pilot's voice crackled through her headphones. "There it is, Doc. You're home for the next few weeks." Rebecca looked down and saw a small cluster of buildings surrounded by tall metal fences. Solar panels gleamed on the rooftops, and she could see several large enclosures scattered around the property. It looked more like a prison than a research station. The helicopter touched down on a concrete landing pad. As Rebecca gathered her bags, a tall man with graying hair walked toward them. He moved with quick, nervous steps, constantly looking over his shoulder. "Dr. Hayes? I'm Dr. James Wilson, the station director," he said, having to shout over the helicopter noise. "Welcome to Project Luna." Rebecca shook his hand and noticed how sweaty his palm was. "Despite the cool morning air, thank you for having me. I'm excited to get started." Dr. Wilson nodded but didn't smile. "Let's get you inside. We have a lot to discuss." As they walked toward the main building, Rebecca looked around the compound. Everything seemed normal enough: research equipment, computer monitors, filing cabinets full of data. But something felt off. The other staff members she saw barely made eye contact. They moved quickly through the hallways, speaking in whispers. "How many people work here?" Rebecca asked. "Just 5 of us now," Dr. Wilson replied. "It used to be more, but, well, this work isn't for everyone." He led her to a small office and closed the door. On the desk sat a thick folder marked "Confidential." "Before we begin, you need to sign this," Dr. Wilson said, sliding a document across the desk. "It's a standard agreement. You can't discuss your work here with anyone outside the facility." Rebecca read through the papers. The legal language was complicated, but it seemed straightforward enough. She signed her name at the bottom. "Good," Dr. Wilson said, visibly relaxing. "Now I can tell you about Luna." He opened the folder and pulled out several photographs. The first showed a beautiful gray wolf with unusual blue eyes. But as Rebecca looked closer, she noticed something strange about the wolf's build. It was taller than normal, with longer limbs. "She's magnificent," Rebecca said. "But there's something different about her. Very observant." Dr. Wilson nodded. "Luna isn't exactly a typical wolf. She's what we call a hybrid, part wolf, part something else. We've been studying her behavior patterns for 2 years now. Part something else. You mean like a dog?" Dr. Wilson hesitated. "It's complicated. You'll understand more as you work with her. For now, just know that Luna is special, very special." He pulled out more photos showing Luna in different poses and lighting conditions. In some pictures, she looked completely normal. In others, there was something almost human in her eyes. "What exactly will I be doing?" Rebecca asked. "Observation, mainly. Luna goes through cycles, periods where her behavior changes dramatically. We need detailed notes on everything she does during these times. How she moves, what she eats, how she interacts with her environment, cycles, like seasonal changes, something like that," Dr. Wilson said vaguely. "The important thing is that you never enter her enclosure alone. Never. And you must follow all security protocols exactly as I explained them." Rebecca nodded, though she was starting to feel uneasy. Dr. Wilson seemed scared of his own research subject. He showed her around the facility, pointing out the observation rooms, equipment storage, and her small living quarters. Everything was clean and well maintained, but she noticed the unusually thick doors and heavy-duty locks everywhere. "Why is security so tight?" she asked. "We're in the middle of nowhere." Dr. Wilson explained. "Wild animals, unpredictable weather. No cell phone service. We have to be careful. As afternoon turned to evening, Dr. Wilson gathered all the staff in the main control room. Rebecca met the other team members, a quiet veterinarian, to research assistants, and a security guard who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. As you all know, tonight begins Luna's monthly cycle. Dr. Wilson announced, all standard protocols are in effect. The facility will be locked down from sunset to sunrise. No one goes outside for any reason. Rebecca raised her hand. Locked down. What do you mean? The compound security system activates automatically, one of the research assistants explained. Steel barriers cover all windows and doors. Nothing gets in or out until dawn. But what if there's an emergency? The room fell silent. Dr. Wilson cleared his throat. The system is designed to protect us. Trust me, you don't want to be outside. During Luna's active periods, as the sun began to set, Rebecca heard mechanical sounds throughout the building. Heavy metal plates slid into place over windows. Door locks engaged with loud clicks. Red emergency lights replaced the normal lighting. I'm going to check on Luna before the night shift begins, Dr. Wilson said. Rebecca, would you like to see her enclosure? They walked down a long hallway to a reinforced door marked observation deck. Through thick glass windows, Rebecca could see into a large outdoor area filled with trees and rocks. It looked like a natural habitat, except for the 20-foot walls surrounding it. There she is, Dr. Wilson whispered. Rebecca looked down and saw Luna pacing near a small pond. Even from this distance, the wolf's unusual size was obvious. She moved with fluid grace. But there was something restless about her behavior. She seems agitated, Rebecca observed. The cycle is beginning, Dr. Wilson said. Over the next few hours, her behavior will become more intense. As they watched, Luna suddenly stopped pacing and looked directly up at the observation window. Her blue eyes seemed to focus right on Rebecca. For a moment, it felt like the wolf was studying her just as carefully as she was studying it. Does she know we're watching? Rebecca asked. Luna is very intelligent, Dr. Wilson replied. Sometimes I think she understands more than we realize. A low howl echoed through the facility. It was unlike any wolf sound Rebecca had ever heard, deeper, more complex. Almost like a voice trying to form words. Dr. Wilson stepped back from the window. I think that's enough for tonight. You should get some rest. Tomorrow, the real work begins. As Rebecca walked back to her quarters, she could hear Luna's howling continuing. The sound seemed to follow her through the corridors, growing louder and more urgent with each passing minute. She settled into her small room and tried to review her notes. But the howling made it impossible to concentrate. There were other sounds too, scratching, pounding, and what almost sounded like crying. Rebecca moved to her window, forgetting that it was now covered by steel plates. She was completely cut off from the outside world, trapped in this facility with whatever Luna was becoming. The howling stopped suddenly, leaving an eerie silence. Rebecca held her breath, listening. Then she heard something that made her blood run cold. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate footsteps circling the building. But that was impossible. Dr. Wilson had said Luna was secured in her enclosure. So what was walking around outside? Rebecca grabbed her research journal and began writing. Whatever was happening here, she had the feeling her real education was just beginning. Rebecca woke up to the sound of her alarm, but she felt like she hadn't slept at all. The strange noises from the night before kept playing in her mind. She got dressed quickly and headed to the main observation room, hoping to get some answers. Dr. Wilson was already there, staring at multiple computer screens showing different angles of Luna's enclosure. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and his hair messy from running his hands through it. Good morning, Rebecca said. How did the night go? Dr. Wilson jumped slightly, as if he'd forgotten she was there. Oh, Rebecca. Yes. Well, it was a typical cycle night. Nothing unusual. Rebecca looked at the screens. Luna's enclosure looked different in the morning light. Trees were knocked over, and deep scratches marked the walls. The metal feeding station was completely destroyed. Nothing unusual. Rebecca pointed at the damage. It looks like a tornado hit her enclosure. Luna gets very active during her cycles, Dr. Wilson said, avoiding eye contact. It's perfectly normal behavior for her condition. What exactly is her condition? Yesterday you said she was a hybrid, but you never explained what that meant. Dr. Wilson was quiet for a long moment, watching Luna on the screens. The wolf was lying peacefully by the pond, looking completely calm and normal. Rebecca. Some things are better explained gradually. You need to observe Luna first, get used to working here. Then we can discuss the more complex aspects of her case. But Rebecca wasn't satisfied with vague answers anymore. Dr. Wilson, I'm a trained researcher. I can handle whatever you need to tell me. What aren't you sharing? Before Dr. Wilson could answer, one of the research assistants burst into the room. Dr. Wilson, we have a problem. The morning blood tests are showing unusual readings again. What kind of readings? Rebecca asked. The assistant looked nervously at Dr. Wilson, who nodded reluctantly. Her hormone levels are off the charts, higher than we've ever recorded. And her DNA markers are showing increased activity in sectors we don't usually see. Rebecca felt confused. DNA markers? I thought we were just studying behavior patterns. Dr. Wilson sighed deeply and sat down heavily in his chair. Rebecca, I think it's time you knew the truth about Project Luna. But first, you need to promise me you'll stay calm and listen to everything before you react, okay? Rebecca said, though her heart was starting to beat faster. Dr. Wilson pulled out a different file, this one marked with multiple warning labels. Luna isn't just a wolf hybrid. She's something much more rare and complex. About 5 years ago, government researchers discovered a small population of people living in remote mountain areas. These people had a genetic condition that caused dramatic physical and mental changes during certain times of the month. Rebecca stared at him. People? You're talking about people. Yes, Luna was one of them. She was found as a teenager, living alone in the wilderness after her family died in an avalanche. She had been surviving on her own for months, and her condition had become more pronounced due to the isolation and stress. Condition? What kind of condition? Dr. Wilson pulled out medical charts and photographs. It's a rare genetic mutation that affects maybe 1 in 10 million people. During certain lunar cycles, their bodies produce different hormones. Their muscle structure changes, and their sensory abilities become extremely enhanced. They also experience personality shifts, becoming more instinctive, more connected to their primitive survival instincts. Rebecca looked at the medical photos in shock. They showed the same person in different states, sometimes looking completely normal, other times with dramatically altered features and posture. This is Luna? She whispered. These photos were taken over several months of observation. As you can see, the changes are quite significant. Her strength increases by more than 400%. Her senses become sharp enough to hear a heartbeat from across a room, and her behavior becomes much more unpredictable. Rebecca felt dizzy. So she's not actually a wolf. She's fully human, but with genetic traits that make her function more like a wild animal during her transformation periods. The government brought her here for study, hoping to understand how her genetics work. They think this knowledge could be useful for military applications or medical research. Military applications? Rebecca was horrified. You're studying a person like she's a lab animal. It's not that simple, Dr. Wilson said defensively. Luna agreed to participate in the research. She understands that her condition makes it difficult for her to live in normal society. Here, she's safe and cared for. Safe? She's locked in a cage. It's not a cage. It's a specialized habitat designed for her needs. And the containment is necessary, not just for our safety, but for hers. During her transformation periods, she has little control over her actions. She could seriously hurt herself or others. Rebecca paced around the room, trying to process everything. How long has she been here? 2 years. She was 17 when she arrived. She's 19 years old. She's practically still a child. Dr. Wilson looked uncomfortable. Rebecca, I know this is a lot to take in, but you have to understand, Luna isn't like other 19-year-olds. Her condition has affected her development in unique ways. Sometimes she's incredibly intelligent and articulate, other times, especially during her cycles, she operates on pure instinct. Rebecca looked at the monitors showing Luna resting peacefully by the pond. Knowing she was actually a young woman made everything different. The howling from last night suddenly seemed less like animal sounds and more like someone in distress. Does she know about me? That I'm here to study her? Yes. She's been informed about all research staff. She's actually quite curious about meeting you. Luna doesn't get many opportunities to interact with new people. Can I talk to her? Dr. Wilson hesitated. That's complicated. Luna's communication abilities vary depending on her cycle phase. Right now, she's in what we call her recovery period. She's more human-like, but also more unpredictable as her body adjusts back to normal. As they talked, Rebecca noticed storm clouds gathering outside through a small gap in the window barriers. The weather had been clear when she arrived, but now dark clouds were rolling in fast. Is that normal for this area? She asked. Dr. Wilson looked at the weather monitoring systems and frowned. No, this is unusual. The forecast didn't predict any storms for this week. One of the other researchers called out from across the room. Dr. Wilson, we're getting some strange readings from the facility's power grid. Looks like we might have some electrical issues. What kind of issues? The backup generators are showing irregular power fluctuations, and the main transformer outside is making unusual noises. Dr. Wilson's face went pale. When did this start? About 20 minutes ago. Right around the time Luna's hormone levels spiked on the morning tests. Rebecca noticed the connection immediately. Are you saying Luna's condition affects the facilities equipment? Sometimes, Dr. Wilson admitted reluctantly. Her body produces unusual electromagnetic fields during certain phases. It can interfere with sensitive electronics. The lights in the room flickered, and all the computer monitors briefly went dark before coming back online. That's not good, the research assistant muttered. Thunder rumbled overhead, much closer than before. Rebecca could see flashes of lightning through the window gaps. Dr. Wilson, she said quietly, what happens if the facility loses power during one of Luna's active periods? Dr. Wilson didn't answer immediately, but his expression told her everything she needed to know. The containment systems, the security barriers, the communication equipment, everything depended on the facility's power grid. We have backup systems, he said finally, but his voice lacked confidence. Another power fluctuation hit, this one lasting longer. When the lights came back on, they noticed something on the monitors that made everyone freeze. Luna was no longer lying peacefully by the pond. She was standing upright on two legs, looking directly at the observation cameras, with an expression that was unmistakably human. Her blue eyes held an intelligence that was impossible to ignore, and she was pointing at something outside her enclosure, something they couldn't see from their camera angles. What is she trying to tell us? Rebecca whispered. Dr. Wilson was already reaching for the emergency communication system, but when he pressed the button, only static came through the speakers. The storm is interfering with our systems, he said, his voice tight with worry. Lightning struck somewhere very close to the facility, and this time the power went out completely. In the darkness, Rebecca could hear the sound of electronic systems shutting down throughout the building. But most disturbing of all was the sound that came through the speakers just before they went dead. Luna's voice, clear and unmistakably human, sang to words that chilled everyone in the room. The emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in an eerie red glow. Rebecca could hear Dr. Wilson fumbling around in the darkness, trying to find his flashlight. The sound of rain was getting louder, hammering against the metal barriers, covering the windows. Everyone stay calm, Dr. Wilson called out, though his own voice was shaking. The backup generators should start any moment now, but minutes passed, and the main power didn't return. Only the dim emergency lights remained, barely bright enough to see across the room. Dr. Wilson, the backup generators aren't responding, one of the research assistants reported. I'm showing system failures across the board. Rebecca felt her heart pounding. What does this mean for Luna's containment? The containment system has its own power supply, Dr. Wilson said, but he didn't sound confident. It should hold for several hours, even without main power. Another flash of lightning lit up the room through the window gaps, followed immediately by thunder so loud it shook the building. This wasn't just a normal storm. It was getting worse by the minute. I need to check on Luna, Dr. Wilson said, grabbing a flashlight. Rebecca, come with me. The rest of you, keep trying to get the generators online. They made their way down the dark corridor, their flashlight beams dancing on the walls. Rebecca noticed that some of the electronic locks on doors were now flashing red warning lights instead of their usual green. Dr. Wilson, are those locks still working? He checked one of the doors and found it wouldn't respond to his key card. The magnetic locks are powered by the main system. Without power, they default to a locked position. So we're trapped in here. Not trapped, just secured until we can restore power. They reached the observation deck overlooking Luna's enclosure. Dr. Wilson's flashlight beam swept across the area below, but Luna was nowhere to be seen. Where is she? Rebecca whispered. She must be taking shelter from the storm, Dr. Wilson said, but his voice was tight with worry. They moved to different windows, searching the enclosure with their flashlights. Finally, Rebecca spotted movement near the far wall. There, she pointed out. Luna was standing near the containment barrier, but she wasn't trying to hide from the storm. Instead, she seemed to be examining the wall itself, running her hands along the metal surface. What is she doing? Rebecca asked. Dr. Wilson focused his flashlight on Luna, and they could see her more clearly. Her appearance had changed since the morning. She looked taller, more muscular, and her movements were different, more fluid and purposeful. Her transformation is accelerating, Dr. Wilson muttered. The storm must be affecting her cycle. As they watched, Luna suddenly looked up at their observation window, even in the dim light. Her blue eyes seemed to glow. She raised one hand and pointed directly at them, then pointed at something else they couldn't see. She's trying to communicate, Rebecca realized. She wants to show us something. That's impossible. During her transformation periods, she doesn't retain complex communication skills. But Luna kept pointing, becoming more agitated when they didn't respond. She moved to another section of the wall and began hitting it with her fist. The sound echoed through the facility like a drum. She's going to hurt herself, Rebecca said. Dr. Wilson was studying his instruments by flashlight. The containment barrier is still holding, but wait, this doesn't look right. What? The power readings for the containment system are dropping faster than they should. Something is draining the backup power. Another massive lightning strike hit, and this time they heard a different sound, the grinding of metal on metal. Somewhere in the facility, machinery was moving. That sounded like the main security barriers, Dr. Wilson said, his face pale in the flashlight beam. They hurried back toward the main control room, but halfway there, they encountered Dr. Wilson's colleague, the veterinarian, running toward them with a panicked expression. James, we have a major problem, she gasped. The storm damaged the external power lines. But that's not the worst part. The lightning strike caused a surge that fried several of our control systems. Which systems? Dr. Wilson demanded. The containment monitoring, the backup power distribution, and she hesitated. The emergency communication array. Rebecca felt cold despite the warm air in the facility. So we can't call for help. Not until we can repair the systems or the storm passes. They reached the control room to find the other staff members working frantically by flashlight. In the glow of a few battery-powered devices, status report, Dr. Wilson called out. Main power is completely out, one of the assistants replied. The backup generators were damaged by the power surge. We're running on emergency batteries only. How long will the batteries last? For basic lighting and monitoring, maybe 6 hours. For the containment system, he checked his readings, 3 hours at most. Dr. Wilson ran his hands through his hair. And Luna's transformation? Her hormone levels are spiking, beyond anything we've recorded. The electromagnetic storm is amplifying her condition somehow. Rebecca looked at the battery-powered monitors showing Luna's enclosure. Luna was now systematically checking every section of the containment barrier, as if she was looking for weaknesses. She knows, Rebecca said quietly. She can sense that. The systems are failing. That's impossible, Dr. Wilson insisted. She doesn't understand technology. Maybe not technology, but she understands confinement. And she's smart enough to know when that confinement is weakening. As if to prove Rebecca's point, Luna suddenly stopped her inspection of the walls and walked to the center of her enclosure. She tilted her head back and let out a long, haunting call that was part howl, part human voice. The sound sent chills through everyone in the control room. I've never heard her make that noise before, the veterinarian whispered. It's not just a noise, Rebecca realized. She's calling to us. She knows we're watching. And she's trying to tell us something. Dr. Wilson checked his watch. We need to focus on getting the generators back online. If the containment system fails completely, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood the implications. What can I do to help? Rebecca asked. The generator room is in the basement. We need someone to check the damage while we work on the control systems from here. I'll go. Rebecca volunteered. Dr. Wilson handed her a powerful flashlight and a radio. Be careful and stay in constant contact with us. Rebecca made her way through the dark corridors toward the basement stairs. The storm was getting even worse, and she could hear things hitting the building from outside. The emergency lighting flickered occasionally, making shadows dance on the walls. She reached the basement and found the generator room. The backup generators were larger than she'd expected, to massive diesel engines. That should have been powerful enough to run the entire facility. But as she examined them with her flashlight, the problem became obvious. The power surge had fried the electronic control systems. Sparks had burned out circuit boards, and several cables were completely melted. Dr. Wilson, this is Rebecca. She spoke into her radio. The damage down here is extensive. These generators aren't going to start without major repairs. Static crackled through the radio before his voice came through. How major? We need replacement parts and several hours of work. Parts we don't have. Understood. Come back upstairs. We need to discuss alternatives. But as Rebecca turned to leave, she heard something that made her freeze. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate footsteps, coming from somewhere else in the basement. That was impossible. Everyone else was upstairs in the control room. Hello, she called out. Though her voice came out as barely a whisper, the footsteps stopped. Rebecca raised her flashlight and swept it across the basement. She saw storage rooms, utility closets, and mechanical equipment. But in one corner, she noticed something that made her heart race. A door that should have been locked was standing wide open. She approached it carefully and read the sign on the door. Emergency containment access. Authorized personnel only. Through the open doorway, she could see a tunnel that led directly toward Luna's enclosure. Dr. Wilson. She whispered into her radio. I think we have a bigger problem than failed generators. But before she could explain, the lights went out completely. Even the emergency lighting died, leaving her in absolute darkness, and in that darkness, she heard a voice that was unmistakably human, yet somehow not quite right. Please. The voice said softly, I don't want to hurt anyone, but I can't stay locked up anymore. Rebecca realized with growing terror that Luna was no longer in her enclosure. She was somewhere in the basement with her. Rebecca's heart hammered in her chest as she stood frozen in the complete darkness. Her flashlight had died when the power went out, leaving her blind in the basement with Luna somewhere nearby. Please don't be afraid. Luna's voice came again from the darkness. It was definitely human, but there was something different about it, a slight roughness. Like someone who hadn't spoken in a long time, Rebecca tried to keep her voice steady. Luna, is that really you? Yes, I know you're the new researcher. Dr. Wilson told me about you yesterday. How did you get out of your enclosure? There was a pause before Luna answered. The emergency tunnel. It's supposed to be locked, but the power failure opened it. I've known about it for months, but I never used it before. Rebecca's mind raced. If Luna had known about an escape route all this time, but never used it, that meant she had been choosing To stay contained. Why didn't you escape before? Rebecca asked. Where would I go? Luna's voice was sad. I can't live in normal society, not with my condition, and in the wilderness. I might hurt innocent people during my transformation periods. Rebecca could hear movement in the darkness, footsteps, but careful ones, as if Luna was trying not to frighten her. But tonight is different, Luna continued. Something is wrong with my cycle. The storm, the electromagnetic fields, they're making everything more intense. I can feel myself changing faster than usual, and I'm scared. Scared. Of what? Scared that I might lose control completely. When that happens, I don't remember what I do. Dr. Wilson has shown me video recordings from my worst episodes. I become something else entirely. Rebecca felt her fear beginning to shift into sympathy. This wasn't a dangerous predator stalking her. This was a frightened young woman who was fighting against her own nature. Luna, can you tell me where you are? I can't see anything. I'm sitting against the wall about 10 feet from you. I don't want to come closer because I can smell your fear, and it's making my instincts stronger. Rebecca was amazed by Luna's self-awareness. You can smell emotions? Enhanced senses are part of my condition. Right now, I can hear your heartbeat, smell the adrenaline in your system, and sense the electrical activity in your brain. It's overwhelming sometimes. Rebecca tried to calm herself, taking slow, deep breaths. Is that better? Yes, thank you. When people are calm around me, it helps me stay more human. Luna, we need to get back upstairs. Dr. Wilson and the others are worried about both of us. I know, but I can't go back to the containment area. Not tonight. Something terrible is going to happen if they lock me up again during this cycle. What do you mean? Luna was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller, more vulnerable. Rebecca, can I tell you something that I've never told the researchers? Of course, I remember everything. Even during my worst transformations, some part of me is still aware, still trapped inside watching what my body does. Dr. Wilson thinks I have blackouts, but I don't. I remember every moment of rage, every time I've destroyed things, every time I've terrified the staff. Rebecca felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold basement. That must be horrible. It is. But the worst part is that with each cycle, that aware part of me gets smaller. I'm losing myself bit by bit, and I'm afraid that one day I'll transform and never come back. Thunder crashed overhead, and Rebecca could hear Dr. Wilson's voice calling for her through the radio, though the signal was weak and full of static. We should answer him, Rebecca said. He'll send people to look for us. No, Luna said urgently. If they find me outside containment during an active cycle, they'll use the emergency protocols. They have tranquilizer guns designed specifically for my condition, but the drugs they use cause brain damage over time. I've already lost some of my memories from previous emergency sedations. Rebecca was horrified. Dr. Wilson never mentioned that. He doesn't know I'm aware of the memory loss. I've been pretending not to notice because I didn't want them to develop stronger drugs. The radio crackled again, and this time Rebecca could make out Dr. Wilson's words. Rebecca, respond immediately. We're implementing emergency containment procedures. Luna made a sound that was part gasp, part growl. They're activating the gas system. Rebecca, you need to get out of the basement now. Gas system, if they think I've escaped, they'll flood the lower levels with sedative gas. It won't hurt you, but you'll lose consciousness. And when you wake up, you might not remember this conversation. Rebecca understood the implication. They erase memories, sometimes, when there are security breaches, or when researchers learn too much about the darker aspects of the program. Rebecca felt anger rising in her chest. This is wrong. All of it. You're a person, not a test subject. Thank you for saying that. It's been 2 years since someone talked to me like I was human. The radio crackled again, and Dr. Wilson's voice was more urgent. All staff, evacuate to level 1 immediately. Initiating basement containment protocol in 60 seconds. We have to go, Rebecca said. Both of us. I can't. If I go upstairs during my transformation, I might hurt someone. My strength increases dramatically, and my ability to control my impulses decreases. Then we'll find another way. There has to be something we can do. Luna was quiet for a moment. There might be. In Dr. Wilson's private office, there are files about other people like me. People who learn to control their conditions without being locked up. But those files are classified beyond my clearance level. You mean there are others who've overcome this? A few. Very few. But they found ways to work with their condition, instead of fighting against it. The sound of mechanical systems starting up echoed through the basement. Rebecca could smell something sweet in the air. The sedative gas was beginning to flow. Luna, we need to move now. Can you guide me to the stairs in the dark? Yes, but Rebecca, once we go upstairs, everything changes. If we're going to help each other, if we're going to find those files and maybe find a real solution to my condition, we have to work together. But that means you'll be going against Dr. Wilson and the entire research program. Rebecca didn't hesitate. I'm in. This whole situation is wrong, and you deserve better. Then follow my voice. Stay close, but not too close. My transformation is accelerating, and I can feel my control slipping. They moved through the dark basement, Luna guiding Rebecca around obstacles and toward the stairs. Rebecca could hear Luna's breathing becoming more labored, and occasionally she made small sounds that were definitely not human. Are you okay? Rebecca whispered. The change is happening faster than usual. We don't have much time before I lose the ability to communicate. Clearly, they reached the stairs just as the sedative gas was getting thicker. Rebecca was starting to feel dizzy, but Luna seemed unaffected. The gas doesn't work on me the same way during transformations. Luna explained, enhanced metabolism. But you need fresh air soon. They climbed the stairs, and Rebecca could see light coming from under the door at the top. The emergency lighting on the main level was still working. Luna, before we go through that door, I need to know, can you promise you won't hurt anyone upstairs? Luna paused with her hand on the door handle. I can promise I'll try. But Rebecca, if my transformation completes while we're around other people, I might not be able to keep that promise. You need to understand what you're risking. I understand, but I also understand that you've been fighting this battle alone. For 2 years, maybe it's time you had someone on your side. Luna's voice was thick with emotion when she replied, no one has ever offered to help me before. They've only wanted to study me, contain me, or use me. Well, that changes now. Luna opened the door, and they stepped into the dimly lit hallway in the red emergency lighting. Rebecca got her first clear look at Luna since the basement. Her appearance had changed dramatically. She was taller, more muscular, and her facial features had shifted slightly. But her eyes were still intelligent and unmistakably human. We need to get to Dr. Wilson's office, Luna said, her voice becoming rougher. But first, we need to make sure the other staff members are safe. During my transformations, I become protective of people I consider part of my pack. But I can also become territorial if I feel threatened. Your pack? Anyone who treats me with kindness becomes important to me. That includes you now, Rebecca. Which means I'll protect you, but I might also become dangerous if anyone tries to separate us. Rebecca realized the full complexity of what they were facing. She wasn't just helping Luna escape. She was potentially becoming the focus of a transformed person's protective instincts. Then we better make sure no one tries to separate us, Rebecca said firmly. Luna smiled, and even with her changed features, it was a genuinely warm expression. I knew I was right about you. They moved down the hallway toward Dr. Wilson's office. But both of them knew that once they accessed those classified files, there would be no going back to the way things were before.